My name is Lawrence LaBeaud. I am a member of UBC, also a deacon of UBC. And today I'm going to share with you a meal that is very important to me and my family, both going current generation and going back. I know of two, probably even more. It is red beans and rice, and it is a wonderful mixture of everything you see on the table, which is red beans, vegetables, and well, it can include pork, but this one will. And I'm going to prepare it. I'm going to talk about the history, and talk about what it means to me and my family. And yeah. So first, I have to cut up a lot of vegetables. As many a person that I talk to, or many a person that I talk to, I like to kind of explain that food is culture. Food is basically how we show love. Food is history. Food is history. So for me to be able to share this is kind of it's a little bit of everything, and I'm kind of okay with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut up I'm going to start with my vegetables, and I'm cutting up something that is called it's called the Trinity, which it's not funny in a sense. The Trinity is actually a mixture of celery, bell pepper, and onion, in a roughly 3 to 2 to 1 parts mixture. But I'm not going to come to your house and tell you you're doing it wrong. You do you. And the Trinity, and as a food to history sort of thing, the Trinity is actually. So I'm from New Orleans. And New Orleans is known as this great melting pot. It has all of these culinary traditions and everything. The Trinity is actually a mixture of the Spanish sofrito, which is carrot, onion, and bell pepper, and the French mirepoix. And if you know the history of the city, basically there were some French people, there were some English people, then there were some Spanish people, and then there were some more French people, and then there were a lot of American people. And so basically, when cultures collided, things just started to mix, which I'm kind of okay with. And so, like I said, so you got something completely new from these established traditions, these established ways. Something completely different, completely new. The idea of Red Beans Mondays comes from this old tradition that housewives would basically, while they were busy washing clothes, they would actually put a pot of red beans on, and the red beans could basically sit untouched for hours, as I'll go to show. But you can basically take whatever scraps of meat, or if you had leftover meat from a Sunday meal, you can basically just throw that in there, and it all just kind of sits together. It plays well. All the ingredients kind of play well with each other, and then they all come together, and they end up at the end of the day with very little effort. You end up having this meal. So my grandmother would cook this, and it is one of those things of, no matter where you go in the city of New Orleans, if you go someplace on Monday, you have a special. You have a red bean special. So even though pandemic, currently living in a pandemic, I can't actively go down and see my family. I can't go back to New Orleans. Can't go see my family. Can't do all these things. But in a small sort of way, I can be with them through food. I can still enjoy the sights, the smells, the tastes of my home, just in my kitchen. I should also say, a lot of New Orleans food ends up starting with, basically every recipe starts with just start with Trinity, go from there. And I have even joked in the past of I started making smoothies every morning, and I have to almost stay my hand of like grabbing an onion and grabbing some garlic. It's like, that's why am I doing this? So anywho, so many ways to cut an onion. Again, we're just cutting it into small pieces. If you're feeling like culinary school, go for it.
Hey, Lawrence.
Yes.
Jump in and ask you a couple of red bean questions.
Yes, please.
Or some fun red bean facts from our family, this generation.
Yes.
Of you, me, and Eli.
Yeah.
So, I'm originally from Alabama. We had red beans growing up. Very different from the style of red beans. Mine was, we always did it red beans and rice, and it was almost like a dry, I say dry. You'll see with Lawrence's, his is almost a soup, like red bean soup.
It's got a gravy.
It does. It's delicious. But it really is like a unique family style of red bean. So I'm actually really excited to share this with you. And when we first got married, Lawrence apparently learned how to cook in order to impress me, which was very sweet.
That is true.
And one of the first dishes he would make was red beans. And he did not know how to cook it for any less than 40 people.
Yeah, yeah. So that is the positive side and downside of this dish. It literally, oh gosh. So this is the smallest I know how to make it. And it involves a pound of red beans and all this vegetation. I guess you could cut an onion in half, but what's that's weird. Why would you ever not use a whole onion? It's a unit unto itself. I should also kind of mention, because this does kind of go to it. This is actually like real, like this is refrigerator Velcro sorts of things. Like, oh, I don't have that much, you know. I got an old piece of celery. I've got some beans. This is poor people food. So, growing up, we weren't exactly the world's most affluent people. So, dry beans are, $1 a pound, if that. Garlic and onions practically keep forever. The celery, I may have kept it a little bit longer than necessary. And then I have fought my cousins for the Thanksgiving and Christmas ham bones for, well, pandemic notwithstanding, years on end. So I always have a stock of bones. I always have these things on hand. So it's like, you didn't get to the end of the month and you gotta stretch things just a little bit. Red beans are just it's a cheap and nutritious way of feeding people. And so, yeah, it's nutritious. It's nutritious. It's delicious. If you actually do it the vegetarian way and not use the pickled pork I'm about to, it is actually a complete protein, so you can actually completely live off of this. Not that I would say that I've ever done that, due to circumstances or a bet, but I'm saying you can do it. So what I'm doing right now is, and this is an ingredient that is tried and true to the New Orleans area. This is an ingredient called pickled pork, and the only way I could find it for years was to actually go down to I'm sorry, I'm going to whirl around. Thank you, Krieger. It's okay. The only way I could find this ingredient was actually going down to a grocery store in New Orleans or one of the outlying areas, New Orleans greater metropolitan area, and it's kind of. I mean, I'm crazy. I will drive 2 hours for an ingredient or an hour and a half for an ingredient, but it is mildly nuts. But pickled pork is basically a pork shoulder that's been cut up and, in essence, pickled in spices. It's pork that has been salted and pickled, so just like you would corned beef. So it's put in a vat, a jar, a bag, what have you, a container with like spices, mustard, peppercorns, things like that. And it was pickling meat was the original way that you know before refrigeration. That's how you
Preserved it.
thank you. I just launched pickled pork at myself. Yeah, that's how. So that was a method of preservation long before refrigeration, and so the tradition basically continues to this day. Now I need to say that since it's pork shoulder, it is incredibly tasty, and you know if someone trying to recreate this recipe can't have or doesn't want pork shoulder, it works nonetheless. It absolutely 100% works. You know. Enjoy the beans your way.
You might also say that in Hattiesburg, a fantastic source for pickled pork is the little butcher shop.
Thank you. One is I don't use canned beans because that's the one line I'll draw. Canned beans are more expensive. A and B, you get so much better flavor out of dried beans. So basically, I just have some dried red beans that I soaked overnight, and basically I covered them by like 3 or 4 inches with just plain cold water, and threw like a tablespoon of salt in there. You know they're good when you can basically take a bean and you're able to actually like break it apart in your teeth. You can actually like chew through it. If you end up cracking a tooth, obviously go to a dentist and let them soak a little bit longer. So now, I think that's hot. That's hot-ish. Yeah, that's hot. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is, more or less, brown some meat. I'm just going to take my stuff. There we go. Yeah. The important thing is to not touch it. So, drain some beans. Here's my bean water. You can kind of see through the. You can kind of see that it's got some color to it. I only had about 4 cups, so I did kind of top it off to. There we go. I did top it off to about 6 cups, with just some tap water. Again, if you're feeling fancy, chicken stock, vegetable broth, what have you. Kind of going back to one of the things that Elizabeth said was, "Oh, this is it's a cheap dish," and since I don't know, I refuse to subdivide this recipe out into anything that won't feed 12 people. One of the things that I like to do when I cook red beans is to basically, again, say to hell with it and just go make my pound of beans and just share it with everyone I can. And so there's many a grad student over the years that has randomly gotten, they've gotten a message or a note on their desk saying, "Hey, there's food," and I can end up feeding 10 people off of one recipe. And we're gonna drain that guy. And this is like a nice recipe because there's no 1 star of the show. Red beans and rice are they're on the marquee, but the beans play with the vegetables. The vegetables play with the broth. The broth plays with the pork. Everyone has a time to shine. So it's nice in that regards, where it's just a little bit of everything. Set here to the side. Then I'm going to take all of yonder vegetables, and I'm just going to put it into whatever rendered fat and oil that I had in here before. So if I can do this without destroying. There we go. comically large bowl. Just add everything in. And so, because I didn't use nonstick, I had a little bit of, there was a little bit of, I don't know how hoity to get. Like,
You can say font.
okay, so there was a little bit of stuck-on goodness or fond on the bottom of the pan. So I'm basically just moving this guy around, letting him get all those stuck-on flavors off the bottom of my pan till it's nice and clean. Now what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to get all of the water out of these vegetables because water is not exactly known for its flavor. So I'm going to get that out. I know I said I was going to watch the salt and watch me lie to myself, but that's fine. It'll be fine. It'll be tasty.
It already smells good.
Oh yeah.
It smells great.
So I don't like. To me, this is just how a house is supposed to smell. A house is supposed to smell like sautéing onions and peppers. Elizabeth will invariably, every time I start doing something like this, like everything smells great, and it's literally just like butter and onions or oil and onions. It's going to get even better when I throw the garlic in there. So I guess I should say that the garlic is not in there. Garlic has a tendency, since it's so much smaller, it has a tendency to burn comparatively to all these other things. So this is just going to do its thing. Now, salt-free Creole seasoning. So like I said, it's my happy mixture of spices. You know, I'll just give you all the recipe. It's good, and it holds for like a couple of months, and it's great. And it's salt-free, so you don't have to sit there. It's not like Tony's where you have to sit there and cut back the salt. Anyway, I'm just going to add like 2 tablespoons of this, and again, while everything. Oh wait, no, 1 tablespoon. Sorry, I have a half tablespoon measure. I'm going to add a tablespoon of that. I'm going to do a little bit more.
That smells even better.
Yeah. So
That's good.
So this is like it. So this is a mixture of black pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, thyme, mustard powder, and some other stuff. That basically I just pulverize I put into like a coffee grinder and powder and turned it into a powder. So I add the spices now before the liquid to basically kind of like bloom them, get them to like, and you can smell it. It's basically gosh. Spices have a lot of fat soluble compounds, so basically you put them in with the oil, they'll start to kind of stink up your house in a good way.
Did we mention that Lawrence is a scientist?
Yeah, I can't leave good enough alone. So if you too would like me to ruin the magic behind something, give me a call. So now that I added that after most of the water, after I had basically sweat out all the water from the vegetables, so now it's like it's starting to kind of break down. It's starting to stick to the bottom of the pan. Now my completely reasonable amount of garlic goes in there. I'm going to actually say what it is in the real recipe and then say what I used. But then again, what is reasonable for me is completely unreasonable for other people. I think Elizabeth has actually referred to it as a vampire check. So now that everything's starting to kind of stick to the bottom, this is when the fun begins. So now everything goes back into the pot. So my pork and all of its juices, he goes in. Give him a little stir just to break up anything off the bottom. And now my drained beans go back in. So that is a pound of beans. Technically a kilo, but it's okay. Kind of move everything around. Yada, yada.
And the smells are getting even better.
Like I said, and now it's party time.
I've gotten to the smell-o-vision.
I know. We really haven't worked out that smell-o-vision yet. I'm working on it. So now, all that goes in there. So everything's in the pool. Everything's in the pot. Right now I'm just scraping up all the stuff off the bottom of the pot. And now begins the waiting. Well, I say now begins the waiting. Yeah, now begins the waiting time. So this is basically going to come up to a boil and simmer for 90 minutes. So yeah, I'll slap a lid on it, let it simmer covered for 90 minutes. Kind of just every now and again, come back on it, stir it, check it, make sure nothing goofy's happening. So it's been 60 minutes, a little check-in. You can start to see that it no longer looks like water in here. It's now starting to look like bean juice, gravy, whatever you want, whatever socially acceptable way you want to refer to what's going on in here. The vegetables have kind of started to break down, which is why you're now starting to get that color, that viscosity to it. So I'm going to let this. I'm going to do something a little weird. I'm actually going to like smash up some of the beans so that the sauce thickens a little bit more. Cool. So I'm just going to take a little potato mash. So basically to go from like gravy to like sauce, I'm just going to sit here and take it because I kind of like it when my food has a little bit of a mouthfeel to it. I don't like runny things. So I'm just taking a potato masher and kind of just. I should also mention that the beans at this point are definitely done, but I'm in essence going to overcook them, kind of, sort of. So I'm going to smash up some beans. I'll smash up some beans, move it around, smash it up, move it around, and actually you can kind of start to see it now. It's starting to get like brown and a little bit more body to it. But pretty much what I'm going to do is I'm going to smash it up. I'm going to cook it for like another half an hour while I deal with the rice. So, cool. So, make sure there's nothing stuck on the bottom. Cool. Alright, come back up to the boil. It'll be fine, I'm sure. And then the rice portion of red beans and rice is just, well, I say just, long grain rice. So this, you can soak the rice if you want. You don't necessarily have to. I got fancy and soaked my rice. Rinsed my rice. So I just have 2 cups of rice here, and roughly that should balance out. You're always going to have the hot dog situation of, 6 hot dogs to 8 buns. I just make more rice. So there's 2 cups of dry rice in here that's been soaked. I'm going to take 2 fat pinches of salt, put that in there. And basically, for every cup of rice, I need 2 cups of liquids, so 4 cups of water. And this is going to be the most interesting thing, because now this is going to come up to a boil, and now this is going to simmer for 20 minutes. So that when these two things come together, or when the timer goes off, these 2 things will be roughly finished at the same time. So yeah, so we're done. So I got steamy rice, a dent in my microwave, and so serving options are easy. You take a scoop of nice soft rice. I mean, I guess I should have fluffed it, but I mean we're all family here. We're all friends. We're all something. And then, so by smashing the beans, you can kind of notice, by smashing the beans, it's definitely gone from like a watery consistency to like a definite gravy. There is some viscosity, there's some body there. And my favorite test is to scoop up from the bottom, and it basically holds its own weight. So this is going to be good today. It's going to be even better once I package this. Once I eat my fill, like a tick, and refrigerate it, and for tomorrow. So, yeah. So, and then red beans, rice, and hopefully I seasoned it right. So, you got the pork in there, which again, pork's not your thing, I'm terribly sorry. There's always other options. You've got beans and you've got the rice. And it's also like rocking hot. Yeah, I'd burn my mouth again for that. So yeah, recipe to follow. Hope you all enjoyed, and bye.